Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar dedicated to anti-LGBTQ hate speech on social media. This webinar is organized by FOA, Fighting Online Anti-Semitism. Fighting Online Anti-Semitism is a non-profit organization established in an effort to combat rising anti-Semitism and hate speech online. We offer free training programs meant to empower individuals and communities from all over the world to fight online hate speech. And by online hate speech, I refer to anti-Semitism, but also delegitimization, racism, anti-LGBTQ, hate, all of the above. Our volunteers monitor hate speech on a daily basis in various languages and across 7 social media platforms. Hateful posts are reported to the social networks and to us. If posts are not removed, FOA directly approaches the relevant social platforms and propel them to take action. Such involvement led to an increase of over 100% in content removal rate in the last 12 months. Alongside training volunteers and monitoring hateful content on social media platforms, we host monthly webinars, such as this one. Our goal is to raise awareness of the phenomena of cyber hate, discuss relevant issues from various aspects, and explores ways to combat hate speech online. Our webinars are open to the general public and are free of charge. Please consider donating to our organization or volunteering with us. It is only with your support that we can continue our important work. If you'd like to learn more about FOA's activities, you're very welcome to check out our website and follow us on social media. You're also welcome to sign up for our newsletter and receive the monthly updates, reports, invitation to events, and so on and so forth. In the next hour, we will be discussing anti-LGBTQ hate speech on social media. Why are we dealing with this topic today? While public support of the LGBTQ community seems to have increased in recent times, a recent report published by the advocacy group GLAAD draws attention to the worrying trend of anti-LGBTQ hate speech on social media. Surveys conducted by the Anti-Defamation League found the LGBTQ community to be the most targeted demographic category on social media. And that's when it's compared with Muslims and Jews and Blacks and Asian Americans and Latinos. A staggering 64% of LGBTQ folks have reported first-hand experiences of online hate and harassment. To understand anti-LGBTQ cyber hate as a global phenomenon, we turn to our first panelist, Wendy Via. Wendy is the co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. She has extensive background in civil and human rights and in influencing national narratives and actions concerning racism, anti-LGBTQ hate, and far-right extremism. Wendy has significant experience designing policy and advocacy campaigns and leveraging research and storytelling to affect change. Wendy was instrumental in the creation and implementation of many of the innovative tools currently used to track hate groups and far-right extremism, especially when it comes to their online activities. So Wendy's presentation will set the stage for a discussion of anti-LGBTQ hate speech in two specific locations, namely the US and Hungary. Our second panelist, Robert Busacki, will discuss online anti-LGBTQ hate speech in the Hungarian context. Robert is an associate of the legal program of Hetal Society, the largest and oldest currently operating LGBTQI organization in Hungary. Focusing on human rights, Robert has vast experience in monitoring online hate. Robert's current work revolves around legal gender recognition issues, which unfortunately is not possible in Hungary since 2020. Last but not least, Laura Cohen-Rosenberg from A Wider Bridge will give us a glimpse into the topic of anti-LGBTQ cyber hate in the American context. Lara has spent many years as an activist for various issues, particularly LGBTQ and reproductive rights. Lara holds a BA in Cultural Studies with a concentration in Women's and Gender Studies, and is currently pursuing her MS in Nonprofit Management at Graz College. After Laura's presentation, we will have a Q&A round and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So, dear Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maya, and thanks to all of y'all for joining us today, and to FOA for inviting me to talk about anti-LGBTQ hate speech online. Today, I'm just going to give you a high-level overview of the sort of a landscape of what happens online. There, as I'm sure many of you know, there is really the problem can hardly be sort of determined because it is so massive. If I'm going to share my screen, have a couple of slides here. Let me know, is that, can we see the screen? Okay, good. So as Maya said, I'm Wendy Va, and I am co-founder of the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. Well, you have to forgive me because I messed up my PowerPoint. I mean, no, I messed up the screen share. Hold on one second.
If you prefer, I can share my screen with your presentation.
That would be great. I do apologize. I do a lot of work about what happens online, but I can't manage to master online activities.
No problem.
So.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Maya.
So just let me know what I can do for you.
Okay, well, you just skip to the next slide.
Here.
So, as I said, we're the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. Obviously from our name, you can tell what we do. But some of the ways that we do it is that we expose and disrupt white supremacy and other hateful transnational movements with a focus on the export of American extremism to other countries. We document how extremist, hateful, and racist movements use social media and the internet to organize, propagandize, and recruit followers and sympathizers. We influence policy by educating anti-hate actors, policymakers, and the public about hate and extremism and advocate for policy change to eradicate it. And then we work with communities and transnational networks of anti-racist and human rights advocates to build and protect inclusive societies. On the screen here, you see 3 of our more recent reports. The first one is a report about a transnational white supremacist group called Generation Identity. They are prolific throughout Europe and have made inroads into South America, the US, and Australia. Their primary focus is on the what is inherently an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement Theory, that says that a group of elites is purposefully replacing white people with refugees and migrants. The next report here on, again, let me just say on Generation Identity, it was that report got the entire network across the globe deplatformed from Twitter. The second report there is called Complicit. It is about Facebook's refusal to address anti-Muslim hate speech and hatred online on its platform, allowing folks to organize around anti-Muslim hate speech, including planning violence, and in some cases like Myanmar, genocide. And then most recently, we've published Democracies Under Threat. We feel like this was an important piece because world leaders are allowed loopholes to the to the community standards on all platforms. In other words, if I were to post a hateful tweet and it violated the standards, presumably it would get taken down. That's assuming that they were actually doing their job that day. But for world leaders like Trump, Bolsonaro, Modi, the same rules don't apply. So in other words, the rules don't apply to the politically powerful, which has devastating consequences. Okay, the next slide. So as I said, this is sort of a high level landscape of what's going on. There isn't enough data to tell us exactly how widespread anti-LGBTQ hate speech is online, but there are some studies. First of all, let's identify the fact that 75% of the online harassment occurs on social media, as opposed to other online platforms like, I don't know, chat groups or messaging apps, that kind of thing. In the US, 68% of LGBTQ respondents reported harassment, according to a report by GLAAD. In the UK, 80% of respondents reported online hate speech in the last 5 years. And in 77% of Arabs in the MENA region reported hate speech and harassment. So while we don't have, and there is data in other countries, but this is just illustrative of the scale of the problem. So we can draw the conclusion from this, the similarity of the reports, that about 2/3 of LGBTQ people across the globe experience online harassment. Okay, next slide, thank you. The problem is such that the UN has gotten involved, and hopefully they'll be able to do something about it. They have made recommendations, but they say that it is being online for LGBTI people is dangerous because of the hate speech. So that again shows the global nature of this problem. Next slide. So why is this, what is one of the reasons why this is such a problem? You all probably know that Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the main platforms, the main social media platforms they're businesses. They are there to make money. And the way that they make money is by selling advertisement. And of course, advertisers want their content to appear where the most people are going to see it. the algorithms, and so the algorithms on all three of these platforms identify the content that's getting the most engagement. It is a fact that hate speech, polarizing content, misinformation gets the most attention on social media platforms. Therefore, you can sell more ads for it. So the there is, even though the companies say they want to do it, the motivation is not, the bottom line motivation is not really there to address all kinds of hate speech. And as Maya said, LGBTQ people experience some of the worst and most prolific. So we just have to remember that hate sells. One study shows that false news travels 6 times faster on Twitter than true news. Another study shows that engagement on Facebook posts from misleading websites, and that can mean misinformation to demonization, rose 242% from 2016 to 2020. And so if you're a user on website, on social media, and you have looked at some hateful content or polarizing content, the algorithm sees that you did, and then it begins pushing more of that content to you so that you see more and more of it, which leads you to believe that this is the way the world is. This leads you to believe that this is what everybody is seeing, because you're seeing more and more of it. So you think everybody is. And, and in worst case scenarios, this can lead a user to, because they have normalized this behavior, that maybe they begin to engage in this behavior, which is how the demonizing content spreads faster and impacts more people. In worst case scenarios, it can induce people to offline violence against the communities that have been demonized, that they've been watching. Okay, and the next slide. Going back to this report that we just released, I want to say again that the social media companies allow the politically powerful. We have elected leaders here, but it's not just elected officials. It's not just politicians. It is powerful people. It is people with huge followings, influencers, who the social media companies say that because of who they are, their voices deserve to be heard. The public should know what they're saying and make their own decision. Well, the problem with that thinking is that these people have the biggest audiences. And if you are a far-right extremist, authoritarian leader who is willing to demonize communities to build your base, to get support for your illiberal policies, then all you're doing is spreading hate speech. You all know that Trump, while he purported to be a friend to the LGBT community, his policies spoke differently. And he's currently suspended or banned from the websites. But he's one leader. Yes, it's the US, but he is one leader. There are so many more throughout the globe who use Facebook as or Twitter or YouTube as their primary form of communication to spread their bigoted policies. For example, Orban from Hungary was just on yesterday. He's getting so much criticism, and I know Robert will talk more about it, but he's getting so much criticism from the EU, Hungary and Poland, for their really abusive policies regarding the LGBT community. And he used Facebook to get his message out there, to get on there and defend it. It is unconscionable. When it comes to these types of leaders, they cannot build their bases. They can't build support for their policies without demonization of a community. And the LGBT population, Jewish population, Muslim population, some Roma, bear the brunt of it, depending on where you are in the country. And of course, as I said, Robert will talk more about it, but the laws in Poland and Hungary and other countries are so oppressive when it comes to the LGBT community that the EU is considering action against them. Okay, the next slide. Y'all are probably familiar with conversion therapy, the thoroughly discredited practice that an LGBTQ person can be cured or fixed of their orientation. It is a lie. It is dangerous. It is so dangerous that the UN has said that it is equivalent to torture and should be banned in all countries. It is banned in some countries. And here's the thing, the Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook all consider conversion therapy to be hate speech. And they supposedly have banned it, but it is everywhere. The promoters of conversion therapy, they are constantly finding ways to get around the rules. The companies have no cultural and language competency outside of English, and even in English, they do not do a very good job. Conversion therapy, the promotion of conversion therapy, kills people, and it cannot be allowed. My own organization is currently doing a study in 5 countries in different languages to illustrate just how prevalent the problem still is and how these companies are not enforcing their own policies when it comes to conversion therapy. Okay, next slide. And of course, we know that the demonization of the LGBTQ people online leads to offline violence. The demonization of any community leads to offline violence. Here, this is an image. I'm sure you've read about what happened to the journalist in Georgia who was covering a pride parade that was stormed by far-right thugs, and he ended up dying as a result of a beating he took at that pride parade. And here's an image in Poland of a peaceful pride parade that was also stormed, but this time it was by the police in Poland, with many, many injuries occurring. The next slide. And more devastating in many ways is what happens to young people online when they experience this just relentless bullying and harassment. And you know, all young people live on their phones. So this is a young boy, his name was Nigel Shelby. He's actually from my own state here in the US, who took his own life when he was age 15. LGBT studies in the US show that LGBT youth are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than heterosexual youth. Now, again, we don't necessarily have all the data from around the world, but given how the other data tracks, we can assume that the devastating consequences on LGBTQ youth because of online harassment and bullying. In the next slide. And what is wildly frustrating is that all of the companies say over and over again that they will not stand for hate speech on their platforms, but we know it's not true. We know that they are in the business of making money, that there is a distinct profit motive in allowing polarizing misinformation and hate speech to remain online. And so here you see yet another quote from Mark Zuckerberg saying that he's going to do something. And and to be fair, the companies have gotten better, and a lot better in some cases, but it is just not nearly enough. In order to, if they were to actually eradicate all of the harmful content online, it would impact their bottom line. And I don't think they're prepared to do that. So the next slide. What do we as an organization recommend? That we recommend that the companies deplatform users who spread hate and incite others to violence, that they enforce their community guidelines uniformly and globally. That's very important to remember. All of these companies' policies are meant to be global, but we all know that they are less interested in enforcing them outside the US and in languages other than English. Of course, improve the content moderation. Let's get some people, get enough adequate resources that can actually address the hate speech that's happening in other languages and languages other than English. Change the algorithm so that the vitriol isn't shared and so that hate doesn't sell. I don't know, for me, I mean, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars of company wealth and personal wealth. And one less $1 billion is not going to, I think they're going to be okay. And then especially apply the rules to the politically powerful whose voices have more influence than you or I do. It is because this demonization of communities by these leaders is undermining democracies across the globe. That is it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Great, so let's turn to Robert. Would you please share your screen?
Yes, thank you, Maya, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for organizing this webinar. Just a second, please. I'm sharing my screen. Oh, okay. Right. Can you see it right now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Right. So just let me start right away. So my name is Robert Bujaki, and I work for Hatter Society. So first of all, just let me tell you a few words about the organization I work for, which is Hatter Society. So actually, it was founded in 1995, and it's currently the largest and oldest currently operating LGBTQ organization here in Hungary, with a lot of services, programs, and activities, as you can see here on the screen, like information and counseling hotline or personal counseling, which provides a really useful and important service for people in any LGBTQ topic who needs help in many ways. Also, we have a legal aid where we offer free legal counseling and representation in any legal matter where the sexual orientation or gender identity of the person might be significant. Also, there is an HIV/AIDS program, an archive and library, basically to collect any LGBTQ related materials. Also, we conduct researches and organize trainings, for example, for professionals working with LGBTQI people. And also we advocate for the elimination of discriminatory laws against LGBTQI people and their families. And we organize community and cultural events frequently. So I think these services and programs cover most of the needs of the Hungarian LGBTQ community. So just a few words about the Hungarian LGBTQ community. So Hungary's population is approximately 10 million people, and the LGBTQ community is approximately 150,000 people, so 1.5% of the whole population. Homosexuality is legal since the 1960s. And regarding the marriage, the same-sex marriage is not possible in Hungary, but there is so-called marriage-like registered partnership for same-sex couples, which is possible since 2009, but there are no equal rights regarding adoption, or they cannot take each other's surname as married couple can. And obviously, they face many issues in their daily life as well, opposed to the married couples. Discrimination based on sexual orientation and sex registered at birth is banned. and also the criminal code prohibits hate speech and hate crime on based on sexual orientation or gender identity. So these are crime. These can be reported to the police. These are being investigated. People are being sentenced for these crimes, ideally. Currently, we see a decline of the rights of the Hungarian LGBTQ community. Regarding legal gender recognition, it is banned since 2020. However, it was possible for many years before. And there is a new law that Wendy also mentioned. It is in force since the 8th of July, 2021, so just a few weeks. It bans all homosexual and transsexual propaganda. But actually, I'm going to talk about it later as well. I'll give you some more details. So next, regarding the hate speech and only the online hate speech in Hungary from a project called Speak Out that was supported by the European Commission and ran in 9 countries with the objective to collect data and to promote best practices and develop a toolkit for law enforcement authorities on countering anti-LGBTQ hate speech and hate crimes. So also Hungary was also part of this. This is why I'm talking about this right now. So this was an online survey, and these are the country-specific details that you can see on the screen now. The online survey was started by more than 1,000 people and finished by 446 of them. There were respondents from every county of Hungary, and there were respondents under 18 years of age and above 70 years of age as well. So it's a really wide and really colorful sample. And as you can see, more than half of them, so 54% of the respondents were women, and another interesting number that the 35% of the respondents were heterosexual, which shows that they are also supportive. They wanted to be represented, and they are helpful to fill this online survey to show their opinion as well on this matter. Just a few questions and answers from this research. A really simple question: Have you experienced any transphobic or homophobic hate speech online in the last 5 years? Almost 80% of the people said yes. So in the last 5 years, 80% of the people experienced hate speech online. And if we look at the social media platforms, so where did they experience hate speech? So basically, this is something like a popularity order of these social media platforms here in Hungary. So most of the people use Facebook. So most of the online hate speech they experienced was on Facebook, like opposed to other countries like the US. Not many people use Twitter here in Hungary, so it's much less the number of the hate speech they experienced on Twitter. But as I said before, most of the people use Facebook, so it's widespread on Facebook. This is the reason why this number is so high. Some more interesting facts and figures, because I obviously won't be able to share all the results of this research. So first of all, a really sad and a really low number that only 1% of the online hate speech was reported to the police. And opposed to this, 44.3% were reported to the social media platform, because obviously it's easier. It's just a few clicks away. There is no long administration process and procedure behind that. But this 1% that has been reported to the police is still really low. What are the reasons for not reporting these issues to the police? again, a really sad number that 47% of the people said that it happens too often to tell anyone about it. So it becomes a habit. It's part of their daily life. So they just don't care about it. They don't want to care about it. 28% said that they did not want to disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity, which is basically they do not have to disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity, but they might not know it. They fear that they they disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity when they report it to the police, or the police will ask them and they have to answer. So this can be the reason of not reporting as well. And 24% of the people just wanted to forget about it and move on. And next, I'm going to show you some examples. Sorry if you find it disturbing. I just wanted to show you what kind of online hate speech we experience here in Hungary. I translated it, all the texts that I'm going to show you. So the text says that to all of you, and obviously it's a rainbow rainbow flag crossed out. Actually, as you can see, it's from Twitter. It's a tweet, and it was there since 2017 until we discovered it in this year, May this year. So it was there for more than 4 years before this has been reported and removed by Twitter. So it's a long time. Also, some other examples. These are comments from YouTube and Facebook, which shows that actually people trying to use different language, or they're trying to be funny, or they're trying to cover um, their statements when they comment something like this regarding, for example, a pride parade, that the helicopters can come with the napalm, or the about gender ideology that whoever came up with this idea deserves nothing but a piece of lead that measured in millimeters. Obviously, a hint to the bullet. So this is what we usually experience. And a few words about the current situation right now in Hungary, because the political discourse and that new law that I mentioned earlier have their effects on hate speech and hate crimes in general. So the political discourse creates a more and more hostile environment in recent years. And as Wendy also mentioned before, the government and the politicians are active on social media, and it creates a platform for online hate speech, because their ideas, their statements, even their official announcements are made on Facebook. So these are being these statements are being shared and commented, and these reach a lot of people. So these are really dangerous as well. And regarding that new law, the so-called propaganda law, which bans all products and advertising and media content featuring gay, transgender people for people under the age of 18. Furthermore, bans the appearance of LGBTQI people in public service advertising, as well as any school program that promotes homosexuality, transgender, or transitioning. It's not that clear what promoting means. It's not clear what the sanctions are. However, it's enforced since the 8th of July, and we are currently experiencing an increase in hate crimes and hate speech since in the last few weeks. Obviously, because of the new law. Why can this be? Because the propaganda laws obviously has its effects on online hate speech and hate crimes, because it can be considered as an authorization to commit hate crimes. or or hate speech. Again, a few more examples just from the past few weeks. There was a demonstration against the propaganda law, which was widespread on the social media, and we obviously we experienced a lot of hate speech, mainly comments here, and the pattern is the same that we experienced earlier, that they are trying to be not that exact, trying to be trying to cover what they want to say. Like the first one that says, "I wish there would be acid rain when the demonstration happened," or the other one that says that it is bad that the Garda doesn't march among them, which was a far-right paramilitary organization. And also, again, the comment with a bullet leads to him saying to an exact member of the participant of the demonstration. So these are the current issues that we face here, and yes, thank you for your attention, and give it back to you, Maya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for your very interesting presentation. Lara, would you share your screen, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Leora Cohn-Rosenberg. My pronouns are she, her. I want to thank Maya and FOA for having me for this presentation. So as Maya said, I work for A Wider Bridge. We're a nonprofit organization that works to create equality in Israel by expanding LGBT inclusion in Israel and equality for Israel by cultivating constructive engagement with Israel. And we're committed to fighting justice for everyone, opposing discrimination, and working for equality for all. We create connections between LGBTQ leaders in North America and in Israel. We do educational programming for the LGBT community in North America and also support our partner organizations in Israel. And for today, because this was such a broad topic, I wanted to focus on a particular aspect of online LGBTQ hate in the transgender community. So I wanted to start out by pointing out a few headlines that I grabbed from over the past couple of months about anti-trans legislation, anti-trans hate. This was very important to me because in the US, our gay liberation movement started with transgender people and gender nonconforming people, and they are most often left behind. We have fought for so many rights, and in aspects of fighting for equality, trans people and gender nonconforming people are often left to fight for equality. And over the past year, there have been so many bills that are limiting rights and fighting and stopping this progress from happening. And in terms of online hate speech in particular, there are certain trends that I want to hone in on that are particularly insidious. There are certain conspiracy theories that you find if you search online, on YouTube, on Twitter. There's something called transvestigation, where people on Twitter, on YouTube will make posts, make YouTube videos citing celebrities and creating conspiracy theories that they are transgender. There's this term transgender, where people will claim that people are only transgender to fit a trend, that they're not actually transgender, that it's only fitting in to be gender nonconforming or transgender because it's trendy. And this feeds into this type of online hate that contributes to real world consequences. And something that started on TikTok and has spread to other parts of online is this term super straight, that being straight or heterosexual is one thing, but being super straight, that you won't even date a transgender person. And I also included a picture of our lovely Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, who was elected to Congress and has a history of fueling some of these conspiracy theories. And she is putting up a sign on her office stating that there are only two genders, male and female. So where does this hate speech lead? From the National Transgender Discrimination Survey from 2016, it showed that 26% of transgender people lost a job due to bias, 50% were harassed on the job, 20% were evicted or denied housing, and 78% of trans students were harassed or assaulted. According to the National Transgender Law Center, there have been 139 reported anti-trans murders in the US since 2017, and at least 31 transgender or non-conforming people have been fatally shot or killed in 2021, and we're on track to surpass 2020 in terms of transgender people being murdered. And this is really horrifying, and this is the result of these horrible trends online, the harassment that we see online. And we also have seen lots of anti-trans legislation. There have been over 100 bills from over 30 states introduced in the 2021 legislation. And we have a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene as well that I posted up for you. And I believe Governor Abbott from Texas has also stated that he is going to pass legislation in Texas to limit transgender healthcare for children. And most of these bills are focused on transgender youth. They're focused on trans student athletes. They're focused on transgender healthcare for youth. And I also wanted to show examples of hate speech directed towards my organization. Because we are an Israel organization, we have Jewish people on our staff. We have a lot of religious hate directed towards us. And in that, what we are doing about it as an organization is we started this campaign called We Refuse to Choose. There was an inclusive flag created a number of years ago that took the colors of the pride flag, the rainbow flag, and included the black and brown stripe, and as well as the colors of the trans flag, and put that all into one flag. And we took that and put it into a Jewish star flag, and I'll show you that. And what we wanted to say with that was that we refuse to choose any of our identities, that you can be transgender, you can be Jewish, you can be pro-Israel, and it's all beautiful. And we're refusing to choose any of our identities, that we are standing up and saying, you can be all of these things and we are not going to back down. And we, in fact, at the last Pride Parade in New York City, we took out ads on the kiosks and put them out there so people could see them, that we were going to be out and proud and not stand down. And that is my presentation for you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So after we heard from 3 different panelists about the situation in the US, in Hungary, global trends, I'm opening the floor to questions. If there are any questions that any of you would like to address to our panelists, feel free to write them down in the chat or speak up. Andrea, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I would. I'm in Greece, by the way, and I'm the legal representative of Athens Pride, and I'm also a Jewish activist, and I get it from all sides. What we do, I wonder really how you can address, I mean, other than just record, well, I put a post up and I'm getting all this, you know, die gays and that sort of thing. But when people in the public eye, whether they're so-called influencers or politicians or religious leaders, put something hateful, we take them to court. Not only Athens Pride and also Greek Helsinki Monitor, the other organization that I work for that monitors human rights abuses, and it's mostly a litigation organization. But we also barrage public figures and effectively neutralize them. A couple of years ago, 9 gay men took a very, very powerful bishop to court and got him charged with, based on the anti-racism law. And it got a lot of coverage on the news. He eventually retired. Well, he was old anyway, but I think to make it short, you can't really, I don't really see how you can deal with somebody in their living room just sort of putting something out. It might be a false profile. It might, that the real effectiveness is to target people who are in the public eye. I don't know if, I guess it's pretty hard to do this to Orban on a local level and get him charged. But I don't know if you've done this with religious figures, Robert especially. I would want to know whether the important figures in the church have come out as anti-LGBT and what you've done about this.
Yes, actually, they are really cautious because it has to be to be considered it a hate speech based on the Hungarian law. It has to be really exact. So if it's just a general statement, this can be considered as an opinion. So when they just post something on Facebook, their statements, even though it can be considered as anti-LGBTQ related, we know that it fuels hate speech because there are a lot of comments, but the person itself cannot be charged because they are so cautious, and it's really general. So unfortunately, it's not an option.
Well, the bishop that we charged with, the reason why this was such an explosive case was he wrote a very long article in which he said, if you see a gay person in the street, spit on him. Or, you know, gay people deserve to die. I mean, there was no gray area. But what we've done is large complaints with the police, not against individuals who just put comments in saying, you know, you should all die. But when it's an important figure who you can really name and shame. That's what I have to say.
Laura, I think, is it also valid in your case? Are there, because in the US, many things fall under the freedom of expression. So is there any way to take legal action against haters?
In the EU, yes, we have
Well,
less.
I was asking Lara about the USA. I know in the EU, it's a bit different.
There hasn't been, I don't recall a precedent for their taking legal action in those instances, mostly for online taking legal action when, for example, for when President Trump was in office, when he was blocking people on Twitter, taking legal action in those cases, but not for hateful speech.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so before we wrap things up, our CEO, Tomer, would like to say something.
Yes, hello, good evening from Israel. Thank you very much for your participations, for the panelists, also for the people that join and listen and ask the questions. I would like to say something very short, that the reason is that we're doing these kind of webinars and that we do not focus only on anti-Semitism is because we believe that fighting anti-Semitism is fighting different kinds of hate, especially against the LGBTQ, especially against other minorities. That's why we're always looking for new opportunities to talk about hate online and not just about anti-Semitism. Eventually, we believe that when we fight anti-Semitism, when we monitor that online, we can help also other minorities. And that's something that it's very important to remember. We've seen this also in the last global forum that was 1 week ago in Jerusalem in Israel, where Minister Lapid had said the same things. So this is our vision in FOA. And again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Tomer, and thank you to our three lovely panelists, Wendy, Robert, Lara. Yeah, thank you for everybody who else who tuned in, either on Facebook or on Zoom, and we hope to see you next month in our next webinar. So stay tuned.